evening. Thank you for tuning in. A very warm welcome to all of you who tuned in tonight. Let's have a look at today's front page. Good day, thank you for tuning in. I'm Jemima Beekers from Namibia's Sun Evening Review. Today we have in studio with us the leader of the Landless People's Movement, Mr. Bernadus Swartbooi. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Jemima, and good day.
So as you all know, we are in the middle of this coronavirus outbreak, and a lockdown has been announced. It has been extended as well. There are several measures taken and introduced by government, including a stimulus package, which include the 750 once-off payment to Namibia, unemployed Namibians, those who have lost their jobs as a result of this outbreak, as well as some throwouts for local businesses that are having a hard time coping during this time. So we'll be chatting with Mr. Swartbooi on these measures that were implemented, as well as his views on how government should have tackled this issue. So Bernadus, we are now in 2.5 months later, with only over 409 people tested for coronavirus. Yet at the same time, government said they cannot really roll out a mass testing approach because of a shortage of reagents, which makes this test possible as a result of a strong demand across the world. We also have the stimulus package, people are receiving money. What are your views about the stimulus package and the fact that we cannot test because of financial issues? Do you think the 750 may have been used instead to test rather than giving people?
Sure, Jemima, you have raised so many issues. I must say that you are correct in your final assertion that perhaps the monies that were given to people as a popularity contest that government wanted to win should rather have been used than to acquire through other avenues the equipment and the necessary facilities needed to do the testing and so on. If you have not done the testing, why are you locking people down? What is the basis that you are locking down? There must be medical grounds, scientific grounds, based on evidence that you decide that we will lock down and that we will then try to bring about treatment, and depending on how the first lockdown has worked, we are going to extend it or we are going to limit it. That should have been evidence-based policy-making approach that we expected. But clearly, our government has money to spend on the left-hand side by boasting around with an $8.1 billion stimulus package, but you can't even do the testing to verify whether the lockdown itself is necessary. And for that reason, whether the stimulus package itself is necessary. Because if you don't test, why are you locking down? Is it correct? Is it correct, Jemima, for a government to be as irresponsible as this bunch of people that Kengo has? How do you tell us with the one hand you don't have the necessary material that facilitate the testing, but you'll continue with a lockdown? Why are you compromising the economy on a process that's not working? Or are we locking down because the other countries are also locking down? Are we locking down because of 16 people? Some medical people have been telling us that the case is actually at 100. And these guys are playing politics and trying to calm people that there's no crisis. Why then is there a need for a second lockdown, even bigger and broader than the first lockdown? Who is not speaking the truth? And why is Bernard Haufiko put at the back burner and suddenly old Shangula is the spokesperson here? Yeah, correct, of course, he's the Minister of Health. Why has Haufiko been removed as the point person?
Why do you feel it was important for him to...
I think Haufiko, the way I know him, speaks his mind. He is not a political person, he's not a politician, he is a medical doctor, the way I know him, the little I know about him. He sees things from that perspective and sees what needs to be done, how it should be done, and speaks both behind the scenes, and you could see how what he was speaking publicly, how intense it should have been behind the scenes, because he was showing signs of desperation that we should lock down the whole country. He said it a long time ago, and that we should do A, B, and C. That has not been done. Now he has been removed. I think, and this is the view of LPM, that there is a whole deal of politics that Swartbooi government is playing here. They are hiding some things. The situation probably is much more worse than they try to tell us. Person number 16 seems to have been in contact with 50 people plus. Those people have not yet been traced, and so on and so on and so forth. But while you are locking people down, you are creating additional problems, not even at the level of the economy as yet, but additional problems of access. If you have toddlers, you can't buy anything for toddlers. 2-3 years, you can't. Winter is coming. It's already been cold this year already now, these past 2 weeks, very cold. Mothers have been calling me, grandparents have been calling me, from Oshikuku, from Kietmans, from there deep in Utuse, there deep in Amanus area. So we can't buy anything for our children. They have been complaining at the shops. Why can't we buy? They are shown a letter from government. You can't buy things. If you're a pregnant woman, you can buy things for your pregnancy. But for toddlers and other things, you can't buy anything. You can't buy shoes, you can't buy this, you can't buy that. They suspect that we must probably just live by bread alone. But you need blankets for your children, for your toddlers. You need clothing, warm clothing for winter. I suspect that these people, when they are making policies, are not consulting at least the private sector institutions in making this policy. Before I know, for one, they have not been consulting us. We have
Mr. Swartbooi,
yes.
You have said that you understand that at least 100, the cases may stand at 100 already, which is already if that should be true, it would be catastrophic for a 2.1 million correct. Population. Correct. Now, if you allow people to go shopping, now how would you propose this be done without people putting themselves at risk?
We have said that there must be a very intelligible lockdown, not a holistic lockdown. You have, as a country, to look at your own individual circumstances and understand that this country's economy is a different type of economy. It's a consumer economy. It's a recipient economy. It's not necessarily a producer economy where we can generate things for ourselves and reboot and rebuild ourselves in the way other countries are doing. Other countries have lockdowns where you control social distancing far more better. You have in this country, and I commend the banking sector, a half-staff complement working at given times, relieving the other staff after certain periods of time, doing the sanitation that is necessary as they go in and out, maintaining the social distancing, and at least we are able to receive banking services. We are going into shops, buying food. Why is it that we cannot buy food for young children? And grandparents have been calling They have been complaining. They have to travel from far distances to places like Hobabas, only to be told that there's nothing they can buy for their grandchildren and so on. It creates additional problems. And many young children could be killed because of winter than COVID, the way they are going on. I have heard, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I have heard people like Yvonne Dowsap speaking that the lockdown is now extended countrywide. If they get off their black cars, they would have noticed that the police have behaved during this first period of extreme lockdown. Police have behaved as if the entire country is in lockdown. As if the entire country is in lockdown. People in Korihas that were building were stopped. People in Ochivarango, because there is lockdown. They do not recognize that what they preach at State House and how that gets interpreted, and more than that, how that gets implemented, completely differs from what they pretend to articulate, unless they give different instructions to police behind the scenes where the media and other people are not watching. This country has been on lockdown, not just Khomas and Erongo, but on lockdown the whole country for a long time now. And now that they have announced a lockdown, suddenly police are everywhere taking alcohol. I think some, not all, some of these police are probably indulging themselves in this alcohol that they are confiscating, taking it back to the houses, perhaps some of them. And so why are the police so exclusively focused on just getting alcohol? All along we have wanted services. They were never able to get cars to come, but when there is a goat slaughtered or where there is alcohol, the police are all over the place. We see you, police.
Speaking about the police and their conduct, there's also an outcry that the police are taking advantage of the situation.
Absolutely.
And even the soldiers that are deployed
Yes.
to keep the order. Yes. What do you make of the fact that that these things are happening? We've seen on social media police pouring out the people's
beating them up,
going into people's homes.
Yes.
What do you make of that? And then the police chief just apologized on TV. What do you make of that? What is it that we need to be assured that people's rights are really considered at a time like this?
Brilliant question. And this comes at a time when we have a Minister of Justice that was working at the Legal Assistance Center, an advocate for human rights, and she's quiet about these matters, really. I don't mean to highlight that individual person, but it makes sense for Yvonne Dowsap, the Honorable Minister, to start to speak up about some of these things, because surely there will be litigation that ensues from the excessive misconduct of police by invading people's privacy randomly at will, claiming that the state of emergency permits them anything in hell or in heaven, and confiscating people's property, beating up people. Somebody in Hendy's Bay was beaten up simply by being on the street. You just start to beat up somebody. Yesterday, another lawyer was in an instance where her son was beaten up simply by whether the person is involved in some naughty stories does not still give the police any right under any state of emergency or any other provision to go and beat up people. Under Kenkop's government, for 3 years, we have been under some sort of military and police occupation that has eroded the rights and human rights of people with Kalahari, Operation Kalahari, Operation Horenkranz, and they brought the police together with the Defense Force. Now they have a state of emergency. Now they're intensifying it. People should defend themselves against the police. People must defend themselves decisively and in absolute preponderance to the actions of the police.
Now, what do we do? How do I defend myself if the police are on record saying that at a time like this, people may have to forego some of their rights?
That is understood. But it doesn't mean that you must unnecessarily and deliberately, without any justification, impinge on those rights. You still have to manage the situation, because the worst thing you don't want is to have some sort of a revolt. We have said in our communication to the Minister of Finance, at a time like this, let politics stand to one side. Let us rally behind the government and do whatever is necessary to show a united front. We have said it. We have said that while there will be concerns here and there, let us rather address those in a regular platform availed to ensure that we do not speak about each other publicly. They have not done it. I must, however, commend the Minister of Finance, who is probably already the worst possible Minister of Finance in the history of this country. I must say this very clearly. Very bad minister in terms of his record already. Not accounting for how he's getting this so-called stimulus, probably even lying that this is a stimulus package because it is not a stimulus package. The media reporting that he has avoided a death trap. They have not studied how this person is getting money. Some of the monies that he claims that they are going to give as part of the stimulus is actually invoices that they owe people anyway, that they would have to pay these people regardless of corona or not. But they are using vocabulary to make it seem as if Swartbooi party government is one where they will uniquely do things to the economy, that the economy will result. It's false. I'll come back to that now. But you've got to be careful that you do not infringe irrationally on the constitutional and democratic order and the rights regime of people. Yes, foregoing that is absolutely correct, but it is not correct for police to misbehave and hide behind a state of emergency and think that we're in a dictatorship run from State House and that we suddenly have no rights and say on how our children will be treated on the street. We'll respond. We'll respond. And the day we respond, I'm sure the police and the military will run. And as they run, they will have no place, no house, no village to hide, because we are tired of their abuse of our people. If I can come, Jemima, if you permit.
Just before you go there,
Yeah.
There's the issue of alcohol.
Yes. And how many of these cabinet ministers are not drinking at their houses, but now Katatura is not allowed to have a sip of a bit of wine, even for health reasons, and so on. Yes, you have to control alcohol. Yes, there is.
And yet we have situations, whether we like it or not, where people use alcohol to soften the blow of poverty and those kind of things. Why? And people have been calling for this. Why? What do you make of the fact that people consistently call for that the ban on alcohol sales are lifted?
When we were saying limit shebeens, limit the issuing of licenses, when I was governor, when we were in parliament and everywhere else, Swartbooi was saying the owners of shebeens and so on are their constituents. Today, alcohol is the pest more than the corona. Alcohol today is the biggest problem. We said it then, had they dealt with this thing, we could have had a different stance. There must, of course, be order. When people have accesses to alcohol, you have problems of one or the other sort. But it is just irrational for the government to respond in the way they respond on all issues, and seemingly only clamping down, it appears, on alcohol question. Certainly all other crimes have disappeared. Certainly they think we're going to forget about fish rot and how they stole money and how some of their lawyers are now being taken on by Law Society. We are not going to forget. If they think with a lockdown they will keep on pacifying this country and hopefully go into November elections without other political parties having the opportunity to campaign, because that's also where I think this thing is going, that they are trying to pacify both the public as well as Parliament from examining really objectively the conduct of the government. We are not going to forget the evils that they've committed. We are also not going to forget the murderous nature and character of Swartbooi Party and its historic standing of killing people from Lubango and elsewhere. But we have said, as a responsible political party, let us come together. But they must understand that come together. They believe that coming together should mean that all political parties and citizens must just remain quiet, and Swartbooi must be allowed to do whatever they are doing. In the midst of all of this, where does the $10 billion loan of the Chinese come in? Who is flying to this country now during Corona that you want now to build an airport? And they would say, yes, this is the time to build an airport. Why don't you take that money and buy testing kits? Why don't you take that money and enhance online learning for so many of the young people? Expand online learning. Use churches as online and teleconferencing facilities. Use various other outlets where people can gather, children, students, teachers can gather in a properly coordinated way and have online learning, and that you can manage even to bring people back to classes with masks put on for teachers, with classes spread out a little bit, and you can really see that we are serious about learning, that learning can go on undisturbed, even if it may not go on in the way we are normally used to. What we are foreseeing is that many of the children, it seems to us, will be forced to repeat grades. This is what we are hearing. This is what we are seeing. Because this unending lockdown, without a broad consultation, without a thorough examination of the objective possibilities that are there as to how you can actually achieve teaching and learning, and they are there. Technology is available. MTC is spending so much money on many other things, and telecom, and other private sector providers, they are there. They can be roped in to provide learning in a manner that perhaps is amended, but that technology allows us. That type of thinking is not there. Lockdown is the first option, lockdown is the second option, lockdown is the third option. They don't have the testing. After the first lockdown, only 495 people tested. Why are you locking us down now? To test another 495 people. Where is the curve? Is this the second wave? Is this the first wave? What do we know? And the worst part that as LPM we feel is after the first lockdown, we are so worried that we know so little, and yet government resources have been deployed. They have been boasting here, shimmy, about an 8.1 stimulus package. But the fundamental reason why there was a lockdown, why there was a stimulus package necessary, is the corona threat. Why is that threat not being dealt with through testing? And Kamui is correct. Kamui is correct. Do massive testing. That's the only way you will establish.
That is the only way.
Yes, that's the only
Absolutely.
thing. You have, I'm sorry to interrupt, Jemima. You have camped and blocked people into informal settlements. How do you know that the absence of social distancing in informal settlements is not a harbinger of infections? How do you know?
Speaking about that, now before we end this, our time is running out.
Yes. I always talk a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Now speaking about that, the informal settlement,
yes.
and this government has for a very long time pushed the growth at home strategy, and yet in this crisis we have seen the over-reliance on South African retailers.
Correct.
We have the discams providing our sanitizers,
yes.
and the informal traders, the small and medium businesses of this that should sustain or that should be carrying this country's economy are left at home.
Yes.
What does this say about this government?
30 years of failure of industrialization, 30 years of lack of appropriate policy implementation, 30 years of English vocabulary that means nothing. And here you see Bank of Namibia former governor Ipumbu $700.50 shimmy, now calling something a stimulus package while it is not. After the 750, people will go hungry. Are you going to give them another one? Corona testing kits not yet done. The invoices that you are supposed to pay, you are paying them. But an additional 2 billion of what he says is a stimulus package is money that Kale Schledwan was holding back to avoid government cash flow problems. He now says they are going to pay it out. And now they say 1/12 of your tax money, you'll have to go get a loan. And then we are hearing that the Eurobond that was meant to be paid for, because they call it a saving of about in excess of 9.2 billion, because it was 500 million euros. that money for next year's payment. They want to use that money, apparently we are told, Jemima, under correction.
Not told, it wasn't the story that I wrote.
Oh, absolutely, correct. There you are as the source, that they're going to take from that money. But they call it savings. You see, vocabulary matters, words matter. They call it a saving, but it's money meant to service another debt. They call it saving. They call this thing stimulus. It's not stimulus. To stimulate an economy, you've got to tell us the economy has slacked to 0.7%, argument's sake. In order to grow the economy, we are bringing in X number of resources, whether it's 10 billion or 8 billion, and we are going to invest in specific sectors so that by the end of the stimulus package for 3 years or 4 years, the economy would have ramped up growth, and the economic growth of the country will be at 3 or 4%. You've also to answer, as part of a stimulus package, as they have done in America, in Italy, wherever, where you're going to get the money from. Where is the money going to come from? What are the debt to GDP and deficit projections? Shimi must tell us. What are those projections? He must tell us. Now they are saying there's a stimulus package. Where is the stimulus going to take place? Which industries have they consulted? Because the tourism sector has collapsed. The mining sector, they had a meeting. Mining sector says if it goes on like this, we will also collapse. They have fired people on a large scale. What is the amount for stimulating the mining sector? What is the amount for stimulating the tourism sector? What is the amount for stimulating growth in the construction sector, in any other sectors of the economy, including agriculture? And where is that money coming from? It is not a stimulus. They are rearranging the budget allocation, taking something from here, from defense, and from here, and calling it what it is not. Taking monies that they owe to SMEs, to service providers.
Like taking your EDGAR's account money and paying off
calling that type of thing a stimulus. Shimi is telling the biggest lie. The worst part of Ipumbu $750 Shimi is, we know, we see you, Shimi, and the people see you. Stop your lie, I would say to him. Good friend of mine, stop your lie. This whole thing of the COVID response is a sham, it is ridiculous, and it is a response that shows the inept and the incapacity, the ineptness and the incapacity of this government. And this poor old man who is 20 years less than 100, Hage, gets advice from people that are elites. Doesn't get advice from people in Havana, in Koreanghab, in Okriangava. Doesn't get advice from that. And he thinks that middle class advice works everywhere. Doesn't work. People are getting hungry, Mr. Hage. People are hungry. People need clothing. People need blankets. Toddlers need blankets, Mr. Hake, if you are listening. People need blankets. If you don't have toddlers in your household, on behalf of those that have toddlers, young babies, I'm asking you, please open sections of the economy, Pep stores, many other stores, Style, some other stores that are affordable. Our people cannot go to Woolworths and other places. Open up those shops in a managed way, in a smart way, so that our people can get the necessary supplies and that they cannot get injured more than what poverty has already done to them.
Okay, before we really finally conclude, can you just in what 2-3 sentences tell us how can we lift the ban or loosen up the lockdown on informal traders like your...
Absolutely important question. It is important that the vendors and the informal traders get a breather, because they don't have bank accounts, most of them, as other people do, to get a credit line from the banks. What the earnings of that day that they receive from that spot, that is the earnings for that day. And if it does not come in, there is a jeopardy in terms of the payment of mortgages or payment of the place of dwelling, the payment of that very venue, the next lunch or the next dinner they're going to have for them, for their children. And so they depend absolutely from hand to mouth to what they earn. Put up requirements. make sanitizers compulsory, enforce social distancing. Police can check those things. Limit access and entry, and limit also the operation of certain places or outlets of where they sell this other thing that people cry about. I'm not going to mention its name. Limit the operations of these things in any case, even in normal circumstances. The informal business, the economy can and must be open because it affects the largest population of our black people. Open it up, bring in management systems, social distancing, impose sanitation as an important requirement, and you can also create social distancing if it is congested areas, create social distancing within that framework of the space in which they operate. It is not impossible until it is done, and it can only be done when people start to imagine the possibility. The black majority of Namibians are suffering the most, unfortunately, under this lockdown. The black majority of Namibians will be poorer after this lockdown. The black majority of Namibians that have stood up without committing any crime to do something for themselves as SMEs, as individual businesses, as small vendors, as informal traders that have decided to not to ask for help from anyone, but have decided to do something for themselves, some business, some livelihood for themselves, they are being punished by this government without rationality. Test them also. Test each and every informal business person that you will allow or that says they want to go and do business. Test them. Test them for corona, do regular tests, and you can then clear them. Even when you're opening up PEP and all other stores, work with the business persons. Let them test compulsorily their staff members before they start to enter the business, so that they can work shifts and that life can, as much as possible, return to normal. I understand legitimate concerns government has. I understand that you don't want to have a spread because you are perhaps too lenient here or too lenient there. But I'm saying, be pragmatic to prevent a fundamental collapse in the economy, in the lives of the ordinary Namibian person who doesn't have a voice and who lives only from the daily earnings that he has. They don't have savings, many of them. And even if they have, they will deplete those savings long before you know it. $750 will not fill the gap, and no amount of money that government gives now will fill that gap. Please open the economy in a practical way. You can call us to advise you. We will give that advice free of charge in a very specific way. We have the plan. We have worked it out. We are going to give it to the media once it is printed out later today, so that you can see what our response would be. It, amongst others, would be, Jemima, as you are concluding, to invest massively in agriculture, to do two things: help recovery from this drought that was so devastating, and transform the economy by looking at irrigation, at charcoal production, at creation of broader services in communal land, development of communal land itself. And we have said, if we can invest 5 billion and transform the economy, because a crisis is a good thing that you shouldn't waste to transform society. We would have, as LPM, invested 5 billion every year now to transform agriculture, create jobs, create capacity to feed ourselves, and ensure that nobody goes hungry. America is now a problem. Food shortages. We'll get to that point. We'll get to that point. Where is the SADC-wide response to this corona threat? Not State House talking. SADC. Where is SADC? Where is this response? On that note, I thank you. I have taken too much of your time. And Namibians, please pray. Look at Isaiah 26, verse 20. Read, and you will understand. Pray. Use the time productively to reconnect with your children, reconnect with your wife, with your girlfriend. No gender-based violence, please.
Boyfriend, husband.
Boyfriend, husbands, don't beat people. Just love and prayer and peace and unity, and to ensure that you read your Bible, that you also get involved in home teaching for your children, those that can do it, as we are doing, some of us as elders. We are also assisting some others to do it. Please let love be the leading element, and let God be our central pivot God bless and remain strong. We are still talking to you.
Thank you very much
Thank you
for tuning in. Wow, that was a mouthful. Please join us again tomorrow evening.
What is COVID-19? COVID-19 is a new illness that can affect your lungs and airways. It's caused by a type of coronavirus. The symptoms are coughing, high temperature, at least 38 degrees Celsius and higher, and a shortness of breath. Always remember, masks are for health workers and those who are already sick. Make sure information shared is from a reliable source. Do not go out and panic buy. Shelves will be restocked. Vaccines against pneumonia do not provide protection against COVID-19. COVID-19 cannot be transmitted through mosquito bites. Basic protection against COVID-19. Firstly, wash your hands frequently. Regularly and thoroughly clean your hands with an alcohol-based hand rub or wash with soap and water. Secondly, maintain social distancing. Maintain a distance of at least 1 meter from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Thirdly, avoid touching your eyes, nose and mouth. Hands touch many surfaces and can pick up viruses. Once contaminated, hands can transfer the virus to your eyes, nose or mouth. Finally, sneeze and cough into a tissue or your elbow. Cover your mouth and nose with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Dispose of the used tissue immediately. Fact versus fiction. Social media is awash with myths about how people may stop the new coronavirus or treat infection with COVID-19, the disease it causes. Here are some facts to address the fiction. Transmission. It is pure fiction that the new coronavirus can be spread by mosquito bites and in Chinese food. In actual fact, the new coronavirus is a respiratory virus that spreads primarily via droplets when an infected person coughs, sneezes or breathes out, or through droplets of saliva or discharge from the nose. Protection. It is pure fiction that regularly rinsing your nose with saline can prevent infection with COVID-19. The fact is, there is no evidence that regularly rinsing your nose with saline has protected anyone. There is some weak evidence that regularly rinsing your nose with saline can help some people recover more quickly from the common cold, but it does not prevent respiratory infections. It is fiction that claims on social media suggest that spraying alcohol or chlorine all over your body can protect against COVID-19 infection, or that gargling bleach or drinking excessive amounts of water can somehow flush it out. The fact is, there is no evidence to back these claims. Good hygiene practices, including frequent hand washing and avoiding close social contact, can help reduce the risk of infection. It is fiction that hand dryers are effective in killing the new coronavirus. The fact is that hand dryers are not effective against the disease, although frequently cleaning your hands with an alcohol-based hand rub, washing them with soap and water is. Clean hands should be dried thoroughly with a clean towel or an air dryer. Cold weather, hot weather, snow, eating garlic, taking a hot bath have also been suggested as ways that people can prevent themselves becoming infected with COVID-19. This is pure fiction. The fact is, there is no evidence behind these claims, no evidence yet that suggests COVID-19 will be affected by weather or the seasons. The best way to protect yourself is by washing your hands frequently, avoiding contact with anyone who might be infected. This way you can eliminate viruses that may be in your hands and avoid infection that might occur by touching your eyes, mouth and nose. It is fiction that you should wear a face mask at all times when outdoors. The fact is that people who are healthy, have no symptoms and have not been diagnosed with COVID-19 need to wear a mask if they are taking care of a person with suspected or confirmed COVID-19 infection. Masks are only effective if you are coughing or sneezing, in which case you should be self-isolating, and only when used in combination with frequent hand washing and other hygiene practices. When it comes to treatment, it is absolute fiction that antibiotics can prevent and treat the new coronavirus. The fact is, antibiotics do not work against viruses, only bacteria. They will not prevent or treat infection with a new coronavirus. There are currently no specific proven medicines for COVID-19 infection, but those infected can relieve and treat mild symptoms with over-the-counter fever-reducing medicines such as paracetamol and aspirin.